Manufacturing consent, the political economy of the mass media. In the modern age, the media is the primary source of information for the vast majority of the people. Hence, it becomes important to understand how the media works in this day and age to understand how our social, economic, and political opinions are created. Professors Noam Chomsky and Edward Herman analyze the media in a very critical light and provide some highly valuable insights into the workings of mass media. Through their analysis, they try to show how the consent of the masses to the things that happen in society is manufactured, that is, artificially constructed by the media. This, they argue, gives the masses a facade of democratic public control over the media, while in reality, the media serves the interests of political and economic hegemonies. They argue that the media is not truly free and is in the control of powerful groups like the big corporations that own the media and the government that has the power of censorship. This is a very bold claim indeed and requires strong evidence, which the authors do provide in the book as they discuss how the media manipulated information on various issues like the Vietnam War, the overthrowing of left leaning governments by the United States and Latin America, the Cold War propaganda during the Reagan presidency, and the continuation of the trend in the 21st century. Their analysis is based on the media that existed in the United States in the late 1980s and early 90s. However, the conclusions have grown only ever more relevant today. Many of the core points of this book is applicable to almost every media that currently exists in various countries. It should also be pointed out that when this book was first published in 1988, 50 media companies dominated the news. Today, this number has dropped to 5. The same has been the case in almost all the countries where a handful of media businesses control the flow of information. The authors have made efforts to address the issues post 1991 in subsequent editions, with latest edition published in 2008. In this video, we will examine the book's main points of analysis to understand the manipulation and manufacturing of consent by the mass media. Part 1. Access to information. In the introductory passages to the so-called propaganda model, one of the first things the authors discuss after a brief introduction of media is the unavailability of information sources to journalists. For example, if a journalist were to ask critical questions to a senator, there is very little chance that he or she will get an appointment to interview the senator in the first place. In order to maintain access to the information from the political sphere, journalists have to play the soft game and not go too hard on politicians unless they have a backing from a powerful group like a media network funded by corporations and political parties. Independent journalism is a very scarce phenomenon in the modern world, and this is a big reason why we have biased media sources clinging to a particular political or corporate interest, or sometimes both.
And you want to really have important, insights into the government. Well, we all know how that's done. You have lunch with the Secretary of State. He tells you the lies that he wants to appear tomorrow. You write them and you say, a high source in Washington. My intrepid reporting has discovered that a high source in Washington said so-and-so. In fact, if you compare the internal declassified record, of, say, people like Dean Acheson's decisions, and you look at, say, James Reston's columns, they're pretty close. Now, in order to maintain those contacts, you better present the world a certain way or those contacts are going to be cut off. You'll lose your opportunity to have to appear, to have special insight, to have leaks, to be able to come across with a story, a couple hours before the next person, and so on. Plus, now in order there's an interplay here which requires power in order to maintain your own power.
A classic example of this phenomenon are the major news sources in the United States. CNN and MSNBC news sources tilt to the liberal end of the political spectrum, often supporting the policies of the Democratic Party, while channels like Fox News and One America News tend to be conservative and support Republican policies. There is an imbalance of information and legitimacy as different media networks manipulate and tweak objective information to present it differently in a way that benefits the political interests of the group that they are in support of.
But tonight, Democrats might be in for a rude awakening. Calling everyone a racist, blaming Donald Trump for everything, well, it might not be the winnable strategy they thought it would be.
He is responsible for legitimizing and empowering the
Hannah,
racists that are
I
out there.
hope you
It
are-
is not a coincidence they are celebrating
Hannah?
his victory.
Liberal media pundits melting down in spectacular fashion over the stunning upset in Virginia and blaming Democrat losses on Americans being racist.
So, Brian, everybody seems to believe these attacks couldn't be happening without Vladimir Putin's blessing.
Very, very likely they are happening with this blessing, Wolf, because Microsoft says the U.S. government has identified the hackers as being part of Russia's foreign intelligence service.
This has a huge impact on public opinion, and depending on the network that people watch, they tend to have very different versions of a problem, which highly affects the social and political landscape of a nation. By this assertion, the authors intend to imply that the media manufactures public consent for the policies of politicians, even if they are unnecessary and destructive, like the US invasion of Iraq in 2003.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger. On my orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance to undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war.
Part of the reason we went into Iraq the main reason we went into Iraq at the time was we thought he had weapons of mass destruction. It turns out he didn't, but he had the capacity to make weapons of mass destruction. But I also talked about the human suffering in Iraq, and I also talked the need to advance a freedom agenda.
The media manufacture people's consent. Part 2. Private ownership and the profit orientation of media. In most parts of the world today, media is privately owned and operated. Like all other private businesses, these are run with a goal of increasing profits. These things have some awful effects. Since the primary objective of the media business is to turn a profit and not to deliver information, which becomes a secondary objective, there is a high level of sensationalism, populism, and propagandizing content that is displayed in order to retain the attention of viewers. Any information that would affect the profit margins of the company that owns a particular media business in a detrimental way is quietly marginalized. Critical information is prone to be hidden from public eyes if that information will lower the profit rates of the company. Private owners have a huge say in the selection of editors, journalists, and reporters who deliver the information to the public. Since they make all the decisions, they not only control who delivers the information, but also what information is delivered to the public. In short, the private ownership and profit orientation of the media imposes a corporate censorship if the information is not acceptable to the private owners.
Now, power in the United States doesn't happen to be in the state. It's not a centralized military bureaucratic state like in the Soviet Union.
Right.
Power in the United States primarily lies in corporations, in the corporate world. There's very narrow concentration of control over resources, over investment decisions, and so on and so forth. And that affects everything. Can't help affecting everything. It affects the government because this means that there's a very close link between governmental power and corporate power.
In the United States, one of the forms that this manifests is the military-industrial complex. Ever since the start of the Cold War with the Soviet Union, the US has been producing weapons of mass destruction. As the Soviet Union had a state-owned military industry, the Soviet state was able to produce any number and type of weapons it wanted. Moreover, since it was a single-party state and the state controlled the media, there was no room for public dissent. However, in the western side of the Iron Curtain, the US and its allies were supposedly democratic states, which meant that the government was accountable to its people. Therefore, the authors argue the consent for an eternal increase in military budget had to be manufactured. The United States government gave contracts to private defense manufacturing companies, many of whom also happened to own the media businesses simultaneously. As a result, the consent to the arms race was manufactured by the demonization of the Soviet Union, the subsequent wars in Vietnam, Nicaragua, and Cambodia.
Let us be aware that while they preach the supremacy of the state, they are the focus of evil in the modern world. So in your discussions of the nuclear freeze proposals, I urge you to beware the temptation of pride, the temptation of blithely label both sides equally at fault, to ignore the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire, to simply call the arms race a giant misunderstanding, and thereby remove yourself from the struggle between right and wrong and good and evil.
The media industry profited off from the sensationalism that surrounded the Cold War propaganda. The companies that owned the military industry profited from the huge returns, subsidies, and tax cuts by the United States government to produce weapons, while the US government gained an additional military strength and a diplomatic footprint against the Soviet Union. The authors point out that the same technique has been used even after the ending of the Cold War in 1989. The expansion of NATO in 1996, bombings of Yugoslavia in 1999, and the invasion of Iraq in 2003 all follow the same pattern. These result in the demonization and vilification of those countries that are opposed to the geopolitical interests of the United States, like Cuba, Iran, Russia, etc. The existence of an eternal enemy of the state becomes necessary to continue the sensationalism in the media, ever increasing profit rates of the businesses that own the media, and the continuation of the US hegemony in the geopolitical arena. As an extension to the corporate control of the media, the main sources of income for the media networks happen to be advertisement. Following the logic presented by the authors, it becomes obvious as to how these advertising agencies play a large role in shaping how and what information is delivered to the public. Any information that is critical of the agency that advertises through a media platform will be taken down and marginalized. The corporate censorship of the media and profit orientation is another form for the manufacturing of public consent.
The New York Times, Washington Post, NBC, they first of all are large corporations, quite profitable ones in fact. Secondly, they're parts of even bigger conglomerates like, Westinghouse and GE and so on. Now, like any corporation, they sell a product on a market. What's the product and what's the market? Well, the market's advertisers. That is other businesses. So they're selling a product to other businesses. What's the product? Well, the product is audiences. Now, for the major media, the ones that kind of set the agenda, they're selling elite audiences, privileged audiences.
In their subsequent editions, the authors have included the various incidents that have happened since 1991 and explained how the media has manufactured consent for those incidents. They have also pointed out that though social media appears to be a viable alternative to traditional mass media, they too are subject to the same constraints of corporate control and government censorship. With such a critical analysis, the authors convey a message that even in democratic states, the media is not truly free. Though consent in a democracy is not forced upon by an authoritarian state, it is manufactured by the media that is controlled by huge corporations with a profit orientation. According to them, this has resulted in a dysfunctional media system where, quote, objective news and free media have become a contradiction in terms, end quote.